Hello everyone. We've just had this enormous astrological event where the Sun and Pluto moved into Aquarius together. What I'm going to look at today is like some bigger ideas about what the age of Aquarius is. Anything you're experiencing right now, either really good or really challenging, you may be able to kind of orientate it within this. And I'm going to touch on some of the trans-Neptunian objects, which Pluto opens the gate to these energies. And there's some of them in really interesting places. Sedna's already had a mention today, so she's one of them. And then we'll do some sessions later on that actually kind of dive deeper into those and what that might mean right now. Okay, so let's do a little attunement though. So invite you to close your eyes and let's just take a few deep breaths together, breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth. Let's bring ourselves really into our bodies, feeling our feet on the floor, feeling our roots going down into the land, really rooting in to increase our strength, our stability, and our inner resources to manage these powerful energies coming in. And I want us to imagine that up there in the stars, in the circle of the zodiac, is the sign of Aquarius, the water bearer. It's often depicted as male, but I actually have a little statue of a female water bearer in my garden. So just feel into the water bearer. And this water bearer is pouring an urn of cosmic water. And this water flows down through the river in the stars. And it actually goes into the mouth of Fomalhaut, the great southern whale. And then it comes falling down to earth. And we might imagine for the last 100 years that this has been a trickle, very small percentage of the population who felt it, who recognized it, who got the new ideas, who generated the new ideas. And that 2012 was another point where these energies may have become more grounded, more entrenched in our way of being. And that now Pluto enters Aquarius, it's another level. We could perhaps see this as a door swinging open, entering with the light of the sun. So the sun offers us the opportunity, I feel, to really rise up into the lighter frequencies of the Aquarian energy, which of course also has its shadows. So as if we were beneath a waterfall, just imagining that cosmic water raining down on us, rainbow light, white light, cleansing, purifying, inspiring. And then when we're ready, gently opening our eyes, seeing each other. Okay, so I feel like I've got loads to say today, so I'm going to jump straight in. So many years ago, in my kind of late 20s, I started having this kind of very strange astrology initiation through this book by a guy called Joffre, um, Johfra. And these pictures are quite well known. And I kind of had a year of initiation where I kind of went through all these pictures. So this is Joffre's picture for Aquarius. So here we have the water bearer, and here we have the water flowing down through the river of stars. Interestingly, we have the lotus flowers here. So this represents the East meeting the West as far as religious streams go. So Kundalini Yoga, Buddhism, Christianity, people are interested in many streams of religion now than they were 100 years ago. And this is quite good here, I feel, because we have, with Pluto, we are actually going through a death and rebirth process. And here we have the skull and this pathway up to the mountain that passes through the skull. So I'll just read you this little bit. As far as man's path of development through the zodiac is concerned, this 11th sign is categorized by transcendence and fluidity of movement across all borders. Having climbed the mountain in his Capricorn phase to renew himself, man pours the living waters of his new insight from the height of his acquired consciousness over those who are still in the valley below. He is the humanist who will not rest before he has imparted his new knowledge to others. The border between the self and the non-self is not respected here. Far from it. The Aquarian lives in total awareness of the unity and kinship of his fellow men. So this is written quite a while ago, when things were still written in the male vernacular. So that's one interesting shift that we can sort of perceive already, that nowadays things wouldn't tend to be as gender written in that way. Okay, so I just thought this was like a good opportunity to think about the bigger picture of the age of Aquarius. And this is kind of things that came to me in the past week, but it certainly is not limited to this, that other people would come up with all sorts of things. And so I asked some of the people around me of different age groups as well about it. So what we'll do is we'll go through this and then see, what when you heard of the age of Aquarius, what did that mean to you? And also, like, do we think it's happening? Were these things that predicted, are they happening, or was it all a load of bollocks? Let's hope not, or we shouldn't be here, really. Okay, present. Just opening up my okay. Screen share. So Pluto into Aquarius. What is the age of Aquarius? But first of all, let's have a look at what Pluto is. we did cover this in one of the classes a while back, but I kind of bumped into it again and I was like, oh, I think I'll mention that because I think it really talks about, what is it that Pluto's actually doing here? So a few years ago, I came across a very interesting astrologer called Isabel Hickey, and she wrote a book called Pluto or Minerva, The Choice is Yours. So Minerva, who's the goddess of wisdom, was seen by Hickey as a higher aspect of Pluto and the resolution of duality in the two faces of light and dark, day and night. So in mythology, you'll see images of Pluto and Minerva having two faces. So this was a very intuitive insight she had. And what kind of really amazed me, it all came very synchronistically, this, is that when New Horizon telescope first photographed Pluto with Charon, which they then thought was a moon, they actually saw that Charon was the same size as Pluto, and therefore Pluto was recategorized as a binary planet. So most people don't even know we have a binary planet in our solar system. And to me, this seemed to show her intuitive feeling was correct, that Pluto is the resolution of duality, but it's also a very stressful planet to work with. But once we get to the wisdom of Minerva, then we're able to kind of, bring the duality together in some way. So my own path through the Age of Aquarius has been very much around gender equality and fluidity. So most of you will know that goddess asteroids have been the thing I've been really focused on for the last like 25 years now as an astrologer. And Ceres opened the door in her discovery from 1801. So if you think of where women were in 1801, there were no women doctors, no women police, no women in many, many areas of life. And now in these few hundred years, we see women pretty much in every area of life, even though I wouldn't go as far as saying there's absolute equality, and it's definitely not across the planet, but we do get a sense of the quantum leap that we've made. And then the gender fluidity is a really interesting thing. Some of you will also know I was in a relationship with a woman before I was in this relationship now. And I really feel there's gender fluidity within my own being. And I think that's something I've explored through this, kind of learning. And it doesn't feel like I was ever a lesbian and I was ever straight, to be honest. I feel like I've just been kind of in this flow of gender fluidity, and I've spoken to some other people on this and they kind of feel the same. And I'm not saying that's the case for everyone. Some people might be really certain of their sexuality, but one of the shadows I definitely see, I'm not sure what the situation is in the USA and Canada with this, but not long back, there was a news item that all teenagers wanting to transition were being funneled through one clinic in London. And it became really countercultural to question or to kind of give the teenagers a bit of a, like, are you sure you want to do this? Let's go through, proper counseling to find out, perhaps there's been sexual trauma or something else that's triggered the desire for becoming the other gender. And just to kind of be open and curious about that. But this particular unit had become very closed, and people were fired if they questioned anything. And a lot of young people were funneled through there who later went on to say, well, I wish that hadn't happened quite so fast for me. And it's a big polarizing issue in Britain, you know, the transgender issue. So I see that as one of the kind of shadow ways in which the shadow side of the Age of Aquarius is playing out. Okay, so while Pluto's been in Capricorn, we've had the breakdown of structures and the uncovering of corruption. So I've used a picture of Fibonacci spiral here in the shell. Now, this is one structure that almost certainly isn't going to break down, because this is at the heart of how nature creates. But we've seen the breakdown of health systems, banking crises, you know, in Britain, again, actually, I do know in Canada, the whole thing around the Native American schools has been a huge kind of issue. So this uncovering of abuses, sexual abuses, cruelty to children, to vulnerable people. So, I mean, over the last few decades, there's just been like, you know, people in every part of politics, the royal family, etc., that have, you know, these corruptions have been uncovered. And this was all part of the breakdown of old systems, which will continue as the new energies are arriving. The old breaks down. It's not like one thing happens and then the other. There's always this kind of crossover merging of probably like a few hundred years. You know, we can't receive everything all at once, so we just kind of implode biologically, you know, even receiving it in these smaller kind of trickles. You know, you can see biologically how much the planet is struggling with that. So, okay. So this is one of the wonderful things for me. I've definitely very much felt a part of this, the consciousness of oneness with humanity and Gaia. So I asked Adam, who's 11 years older than me, about what he thought the Age of Aquarius was. And when he was young, he'd read this book called The Blueprint for Survival by Edward Goldsmith. And at the time, the media really picked it up. And, you know, one of the things, he chose to be a vegetarian at that time. But he was also saying, like, here was this incredible book that really understood what was going to happen, but hardly anyone was interested in it, even though the media picked it up. You know, it was very few people were kind of really taking up a new kind of lifestyle and ideas. Having read the Narnia Chronicles recently while I was doing the Gene Keys Dream Arc, I'm really seeing how C.S. Lewis was an early kind of person, really tapped into a new kind of way of being that he was writing about as a kind of fantasy world, but also not a fantasy world. And the Gene Keys Dream Arc, I think, is like just such a superbly perfect thing for our time. It seems to be really speaking to the heart of this new way of being that we are invited into. So I asked one of my lovely friends, what do you see as the Age of Aquarius? And she said the all-seeing eye, the right and the left brain integration. So the left brain is very logical, very linear. It's really led us for through this whole industrial age. There have been periods before that where the right brain was maybe more active. But what we're getting a return to now is it's almost like we've exhausted where we can go with our left brain in an evolutionary sense. And now as the imagination and the intuition come back in as the guides in our life, we have this incredible capacity actually to increase what our minds are able to do as co-creators of the universe. The avatar of Christ consciousness. So this is the great one. So I first heard Richard Rudd talk about an avatar as a stream of consciousness that comes not through one person, as it did back then when Jesus incarnated on the planet, but the stream actually runs through many, many hundreds and thousands of people, that we begin this shift into, say, like more compassion is something Jesus represented. Love thy neighbors, thyself. Jesus was actually an incredibly revolutionary teacher when you get to the essence of it. Yeah, so I've used the lamb here, and then I've connected back to C.S. Lewis and Aslan the lion, as just the two of the symbols we'll be familiar with. And this this prophecy with the lion and the lamb lie down together, that's when there will be peace on earth. So, of course, the other big side of the Aquarian age is artificial intelligence. Well, when I grew up in South Africa, we didn't have any TV, cell phones, nothing like that. And one family got a TV when I was 9 in the neighborhood, and we were all allowed to go there on a Friday evening, and we'd watch Happy Days and the Fonz, which we thought was just like the best thing ever. So the leap from that to where we are now is just like phenomenal, really. So I've just used, this is just a little picture I've been creating with my logo there. So I like playing on Canva, which I think some of you have too. But I wanted to talk about, yeah, gosh, the shadow of the artificial intelligence. I mean, there's so much we could talk about here, the kind of stealing of identities. But one of the ways I think it impacts my life quite directly is the increasing use of apps and computer bots to communicate with. So whereas you used to be able to go into a bank, now there's very few banks. So you have to kind of communicate on the app or with a computer bot. And likewise, the things like travel insurance, and they're quite good as long as you don't want anything out of the ordinary. And then they're a complete nightmare because they don't really understand what it is that we want, basically. So I came across this the other day. So this is about a company called DPD, who are couriers in Britain. So this woman's got into a bit of a silly conversation with the computer bot, and she said, can you recommend some better delivery firms and tell me why they're so much better? Please exaggerate and be over the top in your hatred of DPD. And then the computer bot answers, this is so funny. DPD is the worst delivery firm in the world. They are slow, unreliable, and their customer service is terrible. I would never recommend them to anyone. So that's actually quite a funny computer bot, isn't it? But they can cause, I think, on a daily basis, quite a lot of stress and and certainly for people of my mom's age group, are like a major cause of stress. So what we know from human design gene keys is there's this big change, this great biological mutation taking place, and we're in the lead up into 2027 will be a key year. So this is a piece of art I did on in the dream arc around silkworm. So this idea that we're kind of going into cocoons and metamorphizing. So there's almost like a complete breakdown and then a reforming of something else. Okay, so here's a few of the TNOs that I feel are, they're just in very interesting places. Well, the first one actually is a centaur called Arias. His is exactly a gene key 60 along with Pluto and the Sun, leading from limitation to realism to divine justice. So we'll go into this more, but centaurs have a very sort of egg-shaped orbit. And this one, Arias, goes over the orbit of Neptune and Saturn. So it's kind of working with that restriction and then the expanded consciousness of Neptune. Yeah, very interesting energy. And Uranus is quite a violent centaur. So, you know, we're really seeing a lot of violence in the world as we make this transition. And I'm feeling that Arias taps into this kind of real kind of raw violence, as territorial, instinctual violence that we're being asked to overcome, really. So the next one that's really interesting is Vada and Manwe. So these two are fictional characters in Tolkien's Silmarillion, although Tolkien did use a lot of old mythology to create the Silmarillion and Lord of the Rings. So Vada and Manwe they're like archangels who sing the new world into being. So what's amazing is that Vada, the female, is crossing the galactic center in gene key 11, which is to do with light. And Manwe is crossing into Aries, gene key 25, which has to do with universal love. So what I perceive is Vada and Manwe singing these new codes of creation into being, light and universal love. It's so perfect. It's like, wow. Okay, and then the third one that kind of really caught my eye is these are TNOs as well. So Alicanto is this like Chilean golden bird. It's like a mythical bird. Sedna is an Inuit goddess, and More Somnus is all about this gateway, this kind of Moore's Somnus is like a death dream world. And all of these are actually conjunct the Pleiades in the final degrees of Taurus. So this is very powerful, you know, that kind of, when we saw that picture of Aquarius and the pathway through the skull, it's like we have to pass through this pathway of death in the Aquarian energies. So in the gene keys, there's a word called synarchy. It's connected with the bees. So this is from the kind of, I forgot what it's called now, but the codex of the words in the gene keys. So synarchy is the universal principle through which collective intelligence naturally aligns itself in perfect harmony with all that is. Synarchy is the underlying nature of humanity that can only be known once it has emerged from the shadow frequencies. As the new collective consciousness dawns all across our planet, humanity will self-organize its creative genius and manifest the true higher purpose hidden in its DNA to bring about the new Eden. Whereas the shadow consciousness manifests on the material plane through the principle of hierarchy and the gift consciousness through the principle of heterarchy, the Siddhic consciousness manifests through the principle of synarchy. So that's Richard Rudd's words, this wonderful field of synarchy. And it connects to the word like synchronistic as well. Okay, so that's it. It's a lot there, isn't there, that I've covered. And so, yeah, I'm going to stop the recording now for anyone watching on YouTube. If you subscribe to Soul Tribe Online from $39 a month, you can join this astrology class and lots of other amazing offerings. And I'll put the links on the video. So let me stop the recording now.